Welcome to another edition of Ovationz Insights. My name is Aaron Ellis, your host. On Ovationz Insights, we like to showcase the talent on our platform and give you a chance to get to know them, give you a little bit of insight into their expertise and have them share some value with you. Today, I am joined by a gentleman named Joshua Smith. I actually know him personally. I've known him for a while, so he's a dear friend. So welcome, Joshua. I'm glad to have you on board.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm happy to be here, man.
Awesome, man. So Joshua is an award-winning, accomplished executive sales expert. He's renowned for driving growth and building lasting partnerships and relationships. I can attest to that personally. He's been working with Fortune 500 companies over the last 15 years, and he's a seasoned entrepreneur, business owner. He's also an artist. And I bring that up because I like to dive into both personal and professional. And so if that's cool with you, Joshua, I'd just like to dive in and ask you some questions, and we'll just see where it goes.
Hey, sounds good, bud. Always good to talk to you.
All right, man. So catch me up a little bit. What are you currently doing? What projects are you currently doing? And tell me what your current vision is for what you're doing. And let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I'm working on right now is turned into more of a technology company. It started out as an idea on how to service artists, whether they're musicians or, mirror 2D dimensional artists. And giving them a true NFT platform, a true non-fungible tokenized platform that they could make their living on. And so they could focus on their craft rather than trying to figure out the World Wide Web and how to have a commerce market there. And basically giving them a pathway that they don't have to reinvent themselves just to participate in a marketplace. So that's how it started out, but really it's turned into more of a technology company where we're going to be doing front-end development with a security element that is going to enable us to provide that protection for an artist that we were hoping for initially. But it's going to be universally applicable for anyone that wants to be in the commerce on the World Wide Web, or some people refer to it as the third version of the web, or Web 3. So it's become a lot bigger than what we had originally thought, and which really ties into my ultimate vision, which is universal freedom for people, for humanity. I don't see the World Wide Web as being an exemption from the protection of people to have their freedoms and to be free from tyranny. Over the past 3 or 4 years, we've seen an uptick in the amount of people that are being canceled or for one reason or the other. I mean, a lot of people say things online that they wouldn't say to someone's face, things like that. I still want to retain for people the aspect of privatization, but also want to make people responsible for their own actions, just as they would be in real life. So if I can help protect artists and musicians from theft of their digital assets, then that's what I want to do. But ultimately, the goal is to enable people to exist in the digital world and be just as free in the digital world as they are in the United States of America with our Constitution. So basically a universal Constitution that does not stop once you start talking to people online.
Well, that is a huge vision, and it encompasses a lot of topics, like you mentioned, music. Obviously, we know music is near and dear to my heart. So that's pretty amazing. I know we've talked about that a little bit before, and I think that would be something for even a deeper dive, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. Let me ask you a couple other things. Now, you mentioned a lot of things that really translate into culture, into companies too, and stuff, and into sales cultures. How do you see, some of the things you're doing in your own personal entrepreneurial project right now? How does that play out in what you actually do when you're speaking towards companies or coaching companies or working with these companies and helping develop their sales teams?
Absolutely. The main reason I'm associated with Ovationz is I enjoy the idea of giving people a way to monetize their talents. And that doesn't stop with, that doesn't start and stop with a paintbrush or a musical instrument. When I say talents, a lot of that is knowledge and experience. You know, people learning from their failures, people learning from their successes, and being able to gather people together that can allow them to give a curriculum to people that need that information. You know, school only does so much. They can teach you things, but they can't necessarily teach you how to grow out of failure, right? And
Mm.
that takes really experience. That's why companies want people that have experience to be in leadership roles, right? So if I can help Ovationz gain more people that have that experience that can help people, then that's something I definitely want to be a part of. Whether anyone ever, whether anyone ever invites me to be a speaker, that's irrelevant. As long as I can be a part of the growth of the company and help give people a way to monetize their talents to help other people, that's something I want to be a part of.
That's obviously amazing. That's very congruent with our vision. Now, you said grow out of failures. Can you
Mhm.
expand on that concept? And honestly, if you could give some examples to the listeners on how failures you faced and how you've grown out of those failures,
Oh, absolutely. Where do I start?
right? That's the beauty about you and knowing you. We don't shy away from failure. So please, whatever arises, we welcome it.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, a lot of people, anyone that has kids, I've got three, anyone that has kids know that they learn by discovering their limits, right? The stove is hot. Well, you can tell them till you're blue in the face that the stove is hot, but until they touch it, they don't actually know the stove is hot. So I mean, when I fail, you know, it's it's me touching the red stove, right? And I know not to do that again. And I embrace failure as long as I can learn from it. If I fail and I didn't learn anything, then I'm doing something wrong because I'm not collecting information from it, right? But for example, I've listened to people that don't necessarily know what they're talking about when it comes to starting businesses and when to start businesses and how to start businesses. So I've been a sole proprietor in many different fashions where if I'd have known then what I know now, we might not even be having this conversation. So no regrets of the past because I'm honored to know you and be in the position I'm in. But, you know, if I can, who knows where somebody would be if they had information earlier, right? It's never too late to start on the right path. I believe, you can always pivot towards success, but, you know, learning from failures, like listening to the wrong people and acting on their advice, um, is unhealthy for anyone, regardless of, how it ends up. But, I would listen to people that were also sole proprietors, did not technically start their own businesses. They just existed in this realm of, hey, I've got a job for the next 30 days, right? I'm on contract. They could get rid of me at any time. It's a really stressful existence, especially when you're paying all of your own expenses, traveling around to see customers. A lot of my early career was business to business interactions, and they appreciated. They had, the customers had the value in what I was doing, but I didn't value myself in
Mm.
what I was doing, and I didn't take the risk. Looking back now, it was a small risk. I didn't take the risk of actually starting an LLC and expanding and recreating those processes and teaching other people how to do it. Like there was no lineage in the industry at all for what I was doing. I was selling. A lot of people do manufacturers representation. That's what I was doing basically, and I had like 10 or 15 different manufacturers I was working for, negotiating 10 or 15 different contracts, and a lot of that could have been systemized to my advantage, and that would have resulted in advantage for whoever I could have hired on later to work for me. And I could have left a legacy in that realm and made the industry better instead of just giving up and walking away from it. Walking away from a 10-year career and being respected for what I was doing, but I couldn't see a way out other than just walking away because I didn't have enough knowledge.
Makes sense, man. Like, so let me ask you this: when you talked a lot about basically gathering knowledge and then utilizing it moving forward, is that something you bring into your working with companies, meaning helping them develop processes or helping them maybe see blind spots and work through them? Is that something you do?
Absolutely. I believe it's one of my talents. Every manager I've ever worked for doesn't believe that it's a talent. They just want to keep the status quo most of the time. I'm a little bit of a disruptor when I'm a
Mhm.
W-2 employee. So I've learned that over time too, is just to be cautious about, the questions you bring up, right? Because some companies
Yeah.
uh, are not set up to receive that kind of information, and I understand all that. Um, but it eats at my core when I see systems and processes that should be in place that are not in place, right? For example, when someone sends in a quotation request to a manufacturer and there's no system or process to it, they just allow customers to send in emails saying, "Hey, I need this, I need I need this many linear feet of X product," and the inside sales rep is like, "Of what product?" And then there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of wasted time, just ridiculously wasted time, and it doesn't serve the customer any better than it serves the manufacturer. You know, just seeing little things like that, kind of get to me, and I try to deal with it in the best way possible and give advice. But really, at the end of the day, when you're in a W-2 position, you can't fix things like that all the time. You have to kind of stay in your lane because they hired you to stay in your lane, not to fix upper echelon problems, right? Uh,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I'm venturing over into more entrepreneurial endeavors, so uh, I can be that as person to fix those types of things as much as possible, and then still focus on the overall vision for a company.
So I think what's really interesting on what you just shared is everything you shared, in a sense, drives revenue. And a lot of companies that we work with are looking for people to come in, especially on the sales side and whatnot, to
Yeah,
help them drive revenue. Yet that's not just about increasing sales. It has to do with the processes and the flow and the efficiencies of the sales. And it has to do with a process and basically an efficient way for the salespeople to apply. It's not just about rah rah rah, let's get more sales. There's a way around that. And I know that you have one of your keynotes, one of your one of your particular keynotes talks is around what you call fab selling. Can you share a little bit about that? Give us an idea what that means and how that applies, how that's applied to you winning awards, and how you apply that towards when speaking to companies around
absolutely. This is something I learned. It's for lack of a better word, it's just a process on how people receive information, really. It's an acronym. FAB is an acronym for features, advantages, and benefits. And what the 8-minute talk that I have, what it does is it get really quickly gives your customers a tool, or gives your salespeople a tool that they can use to translate value in a feature that doesn't inhibit the customer from purchasing it. So in in essence, it instead of creating a calculator in their head that says, "Oh, this is too expensive. I don't need this. I don't need that. Why are you telling me this?" Instead of that noise going on in your customer's mind, they'll actually be building a value in their mind, cash register, that allows them to make an educated decision to move forward with the purchase. Does that make sense?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I understood what you just said. So what you're saying is that you have a process that you share that helps salespeople. It's a narrative or basically a process that they share in their presentation, in their sales presentation, that where typically a person would be adding up a cash register of the cost of something and saying, I can't afford that, can't afford it, don't need it. But in the process that you presented, actually flips it on its head, and the person is actually adding up value in their head.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a totally different approach on sales that would actually, from my perspective, in my experience in sales, would lead the customer towards actually selling you on selling them. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a microcosm that you can apply to any little scenario for sure. Even just having a conversation with somebody, if you want to try and get your point across, I would use the same acronym, like Ovationz, for example. Why would a sales leader want to use Ovationz in their sales calls? Well, if you can add, if you can 10x your sales, 10x is a big thing everyone wants to say. If you can 10x your sales with a minimal investment and give your team of a tool that they can implement that enables them to close more sales and resulting into more profits for your company, wouldn't you do it?
I don't think you could say it even any easier than that, And we
Yeah.
have a few minutes left, Joshua. I am a believer that personal and professional are not separate. I'd love to hear a little more about the personal side of you. You did mention you had a few kids. Can you share with the listeners just who is Joshua Smith on a personal level? It's like, as far as your aspirations, your children, your family, and maybe even share a little bit about your personal art, if you would.
Sure. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I've got a wife. We've been married for 15 years, and this past November, we got 3 kids. Youngest one's a boy. Oldest two are girls. That's a whole different story we could go on forever about. Uh, the oldest is 13. Good Lord. And then the middle child is 10. So it's a lot of chaos at home in a good way, right? And me, I'm an artist. That's where my talents really lay, or derive from. I've always been uh, on the periphery of perspective, at least on tackling things in a different way. My mind just kind of works in a little bit of a different way than most people. At least that's my experience. But that's not to say I don't have a community of people that think the same way. It just seems like people like me seem to be on the periphery, right? Rather, my art is really just something of an escape. Most of it is illustration. I have a art website called dynamicillusions.com. I've had that since I was like 16 years old. My dad bought it for me, and it's just kind of been a collection of stuff I've done over the years, and revamping, rebuilding the website. So I've learned a lot about that World Wide Web that I was talking about earlier, and trying to navigate how to make money selling art. Ultimately, I just went into sales. It's a lot easier to earn a living in sales than it is to do art that I don't want to do, to pay for the art that I do want to do.
I think, though, from my experience with you, and even just what we've shared over the last 15 minutes here, the fact that you are an artist and you have that creative mind is what has pretty much allowed you to be able to see into companies and see the blind spots, see into the creative from a creative eye, to actually apply some of those processes and systems that the non-creative doesn't necessarily see. Because as a creative, we look for all that stuff. We see the layers, and we see, we kind of see it all when we're looking at it. So I can see how that's completely applied towards your sales. It doesn't. I can see the complete connection with that. It's not a far jump, right? And it totally makes sense. So, what's up for you this next year? What can we look for you this next year?
So before the end of the year, I'm looking to have at least a minimum viable product for the artist or musician, a product that at least allows them to start capturing their works in a digital format that protects them and at least protects their asset. That's the goal. It's an early phase. We want people to we want everyone to be invited to the game, but I'm going to focus on the individual artists right now. Eventually, we're going to focus on enterprise, allowing them to the game once we perfect the process, right? Because we don't want to introduce something that doesn't have an effective process. Essentially, we want to be a conduit for fair exchange on the World Wide Web.
That would be a massive shift. honestly, to tell you the truth. So, well, hey, we are at time, Joshua. I want to say thank you for joining me. I always enjoy having conversations with you. And for those of you listening again, Joshua Smith here with us today. He's a seasoned sales expert. And as you can tell from listening, he really understands the processes and the systems on how to get your company going, how to get your sales team going and driving that revenue. So I appreciate you sharing your insights and your expertise with us, Joshua. And just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you very much. And I look forward to talking to you more, bud.
Yeah, anybody want to learn more about Joshua, head over to ovationz.com and you can search him. Thanks, everybody.